Good evening. I call the Town of Mountain View Council regular meeting of October 20th, 2025 to order at 6:30 PM. Will our town clerk please call the roll?
Mayor Mitchum,
Here.
Councilmember Elgin, Councilmember Bailey,
Here.
Councilmember Debner,
Here.
Councilmember Dennis,
Here.
Councilmember Lasher,
Here.
Councilmember Unger. We have a quorum.
Thank you. Will you all please rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Will the clerk please read the consent agenda into the record?
The consent agenda consists of the agenda approval, the meeting minutes from the 9/15/25 council meeting.
I move to approve the consent agenda.
Second. All in favor say yes.
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 All opposed say no. Consent agenda is adopted. Moving on, we're going straight into our public comment period. And I will summarize the rules for us all. The rules are also in the packet. But for those who don't have the packet, we ask that you sign up with your name and address. If you're participating remotely, we ask that you put your address in the comment in the chat line, please. And although you won't get a response from us in this meeting, someone will follow up with you after the meeting. If you have a specific question that requires follow-up, please limit your speaking time to 3 minutes. The clerk will be timing you, and we'll take public comments in the room first and then move to anyone who's attending remotely, and the clerk will call you in turn.
Jeff Kitty.
Jeff Kitty, live at 4175 Benton Street. I'd like to get a little bit of clarification on why some of the ordinances are on the consent agenda and there's no second reading on some of those. Specifically the ordinance last month dealing with the mayor's raise. The other thing I'd like to point out is I've never seen a mayor rally for a raise in my life like that. I think it's bad decorum and not having a second reading on that. It's just poor governance. What can I say? You know, there's a lot of things that are going on, and I know I'm running for mayor, but we're spending a lot of money on stuff that we don't need to be. We've got too many employees that are doing stuff that they could be doing other things as well. And that's really about all I got to say. But I think you really ought to take a look at how you're doing the ordinances, and there should be a second reading on it, especially when it's for a raise like that.
Thank you for your comment.
Brian Carney.
Brian Carney on Ames Street. So I'm here today because some very disturbing news came to my attention a few weeks back when my employer walked into my office to inform me that one of our elected council persons has been contacting his wife, telling her that I am a menace to the community, that I am deranged, and that I am quote unquote throwing bricks at people's houses. As most of you are aware, I have a wife and 2 small children at home. I don't know why one of our elected officials is trying to get me fired from the business I've helped build from the ground up for 20 years. And to accuse me of throwing bricks at people's houses is pretty rich when, as far as I'm aware, there is only one member in this community about to stand trial for multiple felonial assault and menacing charges, and it's not me. So I have no idea what the town has in place, but I'm not suspecting that I'm probably the only person that this council member, and for them to reach out to my employer and talk, slander me to my employer is so far out of bounds, it's ridiculous. That's all I have to say.
Thank you for your comment.
Dodie Dosh.
Quiet in the
on
audience,
Benton
please.
Street. I just want to address some of the disparaging remarks made last council meeting by one of the council members regarding previous administrations. Maybe you need a history lesson. The reason you have a surplus that you are spending today is because of Jeff's administration and the people on council at that time, which is when the marijuana shops were approved. That's why you have a surplus, and that's why we are so upset about some of the ways it's being spent. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment. Are we moving to remote participants? If there's anybody participating remotely who would like to make a public comment, you may raise your hand to be unmuted. And the clerk will call on you. She can unmute you as well once you raise your hand in the chat. And put your address in the chat.
There's no one who
Nobody's,
wishes to speak.
okay. Thank you very much. I appreciate everybody coming to the meetings and sharing your thoughts. I know it takes time and energy out of your day, and it's not always the easiest thing to do. So thank you for participating. We will move on to agenda item number 6. May I hear a motion from our Mayor Pro Tem to bring the agenda item to the floor, please?
I move to approve the second reading of ordinance number 2025-09-15A, an ordinance adopting a budget summarizing revenues and expenditures for the town of Mountain View for the calendar year commencing January 1st, 2026 and ending December 31st, 2026, and appropriating funds therefor.
Okay, so this is the second reading on the 2026 budget, and there in council's packet, there is the as amended budget that was passed on first reading. And then in addition, there's another version of the budget with some recommendations that our clerk will be walking us through. And there's also a table setting that's related to this, and our clerk will walk us through all of that as well. Go ahead, you have the floor.
Good evening, Mayor, members of council. I wanted to highlight just a few of the changes that we're presenting in the budget. They're small, but I think it's important to have them documented. The first one is that we have increased the estimated photo radar revenue by about 38,000. This was a decision that I came to with Lorraine due to just the trends that we've seen in the revenue thus far. We felt it was appropriate to just bump it up. It's still a conservative number, but it's increased revenue. The increase in the estimated highway user tax fund by about 22,000. That's because the initial numbers were much lower than the numbers that we received from the state here recently in the last week. So I felt it was appropriate to reflect that in the revenues. We increased the mayor and council salaries by $8,000. On the first reading, I put a $70,000 placeholder because the ordinance hadn't passed yet. Because it was a passed on second reading, I reflected the actual number based off of that. We decreased the salary and wages by about $3,300 in the general government expenses. That's just due to some transitions in staffing. And then we moved our civilian police wages back into the line item it was originally earmarked in. So those are the only notable changes from first reading to second reading. As for the council staff report I have, it's a breakdown on how our proposed budget adheres to the reserve policy. I think it's good to highlight that we are required to have about 4 months worth of general fund in reserves. and we exceed that by about 9.2 months. We're required to have 110% of our debt service coverage. We are now at about 142% of debt service coverage. Our target for the 3% Tabor reserve should be 84,000. We have 2.1 in actuals, so we more than exceed that requirement. And then the 180-day enterprise fund reserve, we meet and exceed by about 130,000. So we're adhering to our reserve policy and then some. And I think that's good to note in making a consideration on the budget.
Thank you very much.
Mhm.
Questions from council, discussion?
I just want to express my appreciation for this table setting. It's very clear, well laid out, and just is great evidence for compliance to our financial policy. So thank you.
You're welcome.
I second that.
All in favor, say yes. Any other discussion or thoughts before we go to a vote on the second reading of the 2026 proposed budget? Councilmember Debner?
So this year, we decided to pay for park maintenance from the Conservation Trust Fund.
Yes.
Based on the amounts that I'm looking in the packet there, it looks like in like maybe 2027, we will have to tap back into the general fund. Is that my understanding? Because there's only so much in the Conservation Trust Fund. And based on the revenues, it looks like it won't necessarily replenish at the rate that we planned.
So I think the most important thing to note is that I was very conservative with the revenues, right? So if our revenues end up being greater than I budgeted, then our fund balance will be higher at the end of this year or fiscal year 26. So then we won't have to use the Conservation Trust Fund to offset those expenses for 2027.
Yeah, I don't think the thinking was that we would always be using those funds for regular routine maintenance. The thinking is just for the fiscal year 26.
Thank you.
Other discussion or questions, clarification? Will the clerk please call the vote?
Mayor Pro Tem Bailey,
Yes.
Councilmember Debner,
Yes.
Councilmember Dennis,
Yes.
Councilmember Lasher.
Yes. Motion passes. Thank you. Moving on to agenda item number 7. May I hear a motion from our Mayor Pro Tem to bring it to the floor, please?
I move to approve ordinance number 2025-10-20A, an ordinance amending chapter 16 of the Mountain View Municipal Code regarding landscaping requirements.
So our town attorney is going to introduce this item and speak to it.
Yeah, so what this ordinance is doing is a couple of things. So currently in your zoning code, landscaping requirements are in 3 different places. This brings those 3 different.
I just realized we didn't do the move to amend on the ordinance. We'll have to go back to it.
Oh yeah,
I'm
let's do
sorry.
that now.
Do that now.
Yeah.
Okay. So sorry about that. We need to have a motion to amend. So we're gonna pause this agenda item and go back to agenda item number 6. Because of the changes in the budget, we need to actually have a motion to amend the 2026 budget as presented by the clerk.
I move to,
So sorry, so first you're actually gonna need to move to suspend the motion on the floor right now.
I move to suspend the motion on the floor.
Second. All in favor say yes.
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 All opposed say no. Motion passes.
I move to amend the FY 26 budget as proposed by the clerk.
And a second? Second. Will the clerk please call the roll on the motion to amend agenda item number 6?
Mayor Pro Tem Bailey,
Yes.
Councilmember Debner,
Yes.
Councilmember Dennis,
Yes.
Councilmember Lasher.
Yes. Motion passes. Sorry about that, everybody. Thank you for your help. We are moving on to agenda item number 7, and we need to have a motion to bring it to the floor again. do we need to do that or can we just, yeah?
Okay. Sorry. Scrolling back up. I move to approve ordinance number 2025-10-20A, an ordinance amending chapter 16 of the Mountain View Municipal Code regarding landscaping requirements.
Second.
You have the floor.
Perfect. Okay, so this ordinance does a couple of things. The first, as I mentioned before, is moves the three different sections related to landscaping and puts them in one new section. It also anticipates and complies with the state law changes regarding landscaping practices, specifically artificial turf and turf high or low water usage turf. So it does those things, but it also proposes a way to regulate landscaping that's a little bit simpler than what you have today. So you have general requirements related to all uses. And minimum landscaping required related to most uses, but you'll see it's different depending on where on the lot the landscaping is being placed. Then you have landscape materials that will apply to all uses as well, and it's tailored based off those state law changes that I just mentioned. And then a landscape plan, finally, in the last section, relates to a plan showing how they actually comply with all these landscape requirements, so that when the planner is reviewing the site plan that's associated with the landscaping requirement, they can see it all in one place and can verify that they comply. So that's really mostly what it's doing. One quick footnote is to say, obviously it would be better to have these conversations and better if this ordinance would have come during the zoning rewrite so that we can look at it comprehensively when you might have a new set of districts and a new set of uses, so we can fold in development standards that are tailored based off those precursory decisions. But to be able to comply with state law, this kind of had to jump the wagon a bit. And so that's why we're doing this today. But I'd encourage us to try to refrain from that type of leapfrogging and allow the zoning rewrite to work through sort of comprehensively. That's all I have.
Thank you. Appreciate that. Discussion from council? Questions, Mayor Pro Tem? Yes. Sorry.
I saw that in the language, the landscape plan, it could be, that was at the discretion of the municipality. Is that correct? Have we had thoughts on what direction the council would move in as a body on that? Whether or not to require it?
So the landscape plan, the general rule is that it will be required, but the applicant can present evidence that they can show compliance without the plan. And at that stage, the relevant decision-making body, so at this stage currently, although I kept it broad in this
Right.
drafting, so we don't have to change it to zoning, right? But currently, the town council could decide to say, hey, this applicant is using all of the native plantings on the site already, and they've demonstrated evidence that landscaping currently installed on the site is compliant with the standards. So let's not have them sort of go through the process of getting a landscape architect to show us what's already on the site. So that's kind of the scenario that you're envisioning here with that exception.
Right, because the existing landscape counts towards that, or towards all the requirements.
Right.
That makes sense. I like the idea that we wouldn't have to put somebody through the hoops just because to meet the new requirement, just because they're doing an addition or whatever, or a new build or something like that.
Right.
I agree.
I-
Councilmember Grabner?
Would you be able to maybe summarize kind of what's currently on the books versus what's proposed here? Kind of the compare and contrast the differences for council and the public?
Very broadly. So right now you have 3 different landscaping sections for each zoning district. So you can see them in the first section in the ordinance because we're repealing those. So most of those sections have a lot of the same general requirements that they just repeat between the 3 sections. And they have some minimum differences between each district. They don't require a landscaping plan in any case. And so there's really a question of, 1, when is this submitted? That's not really answered in your current code. And 2, how do you show compliance? And 3, who approves it? So those are differences in the way that this ordinance is drafted versus what you have in the books. Also, the threshold of how you get in, of when we actually require compliance, is different. So you'll see in this ordinance, whereas in your current code, it doesn't address it. And in this ordinance, it talks about a certain level of new development to be able to trigger the landscape requirements. So for instance, if you're building more than 250 square feet, then you would have to come into compliance with the new landscaping. Why 250 square feet? It's largely because if you're doing an accessory building, like a garage, you shouldn't have to redo all of your landscaping. That's typically the thought, at least with most other bodies. The other big difference is the type of plantings here, because the type of plantings required in this new ordinances reflective of the state law changes. So it's going to be more native planting requirements and more low water planting requirements, and a prohibition on artificial plantings. And again, that's in conformance with sort of the state law change that goes into effect January 1.
So if my understanding is correct, it says all plants shall be native to the region or non-invasive and drought tolerant. So as long as it's non-invasive and drought tolerant, it can be non-native.
Exactly right. And so there's actually hybridized types of turf that are low water. They're not native, but they would fall within that exception. So you could still have certain types of turf.
Thank you.
But you couldn't have, for instance, like Kentucky bluegrass.
But, and my understanding is that the non-functional turf that's defined in the statutes is like community gathering type stuff. Sure, I don't know, that doesn't apply to someone's backyard, does it? I mean, I would imagine that you can't have backyard grass under with a new development, or if it was a.
So you could if it was low water. So the state law requirements have sort of these general rules around, we don't want to see much artificial turf or plantings, and we don't want to see high water usage turf at all. But then they have these exemptions, which are really done mostly by definition in state law, and how that is, how that comes into practice is that you can have a low water hybridized type of turf, and they want to consider that turf under the state law.
Oh, so it's not even considered turf.
Yeah, it's not considered, high water turf.
When I read it, I was like,
regulated.
non-functional turf. I mean, I looked at the definition and I was like, that means no backyard grass. And I was like, worried about that for.
Speak right into the mic.
Yeah, so you could still have backyard grass under state law and under the landscaping requirements here. The idea would be that type of grass would be low water. It's not going to be native because there's no native turf in Colorado.
Thank you. That is really helpful. I had that question.
Yeah, the state law kind of like folds in on itself, and that's why they redid it in this last legislature, but they really just kind of like sandwiched in a bunch of new provisions.
Councilmember Dudner?
I was curious if council had any thoughts about the tree height, because I noticed, so an 8-foot tree requirement, I mean, does that seem fine? I mean, it's a pretty big tree. So if someone wanted to plant, something smaller, we're maybe a little bit prohibitive there.
Let the town attorney speak to this first.
And let me clarify, that's only for new evergreen trees. So that's just one type of planting that can get you to your minimum planting requirement. But it is true for evergreen trees, if that's going to be a type of planting that you use toward the landscaping requirements here, then it must be a minimum of 8 feet when it's installed.
And that's per the state requirement?
No, that is because landscape architects generally require that height because it has a higher chance of surviving after being planted.
That makes sense.
Whereas deciduous trees, you'll see it's based off the caliper, and it's the same reasoning there. It's based off landscape architects saying, if you have a 2-inch caliper, you probably have a higher chance of that plant surviving.
And
once
the
it's set.
caliper is like the width of the tree,
Correct.
of the tree trunk? Mayor Pro Tem?
I'm curious. I do remember what caliper trees the town planted through the tree planting program. Do you recall?
I'd have to look it up. I know that they were bigger than the beginner tree that we went as high as we could.
Yeah, I was
To
just
try
trying
to
to put
keep
that
their-
into perspective for
Mhm.
folks.
I can find that out if you'd like.
Yeah.
That'd be great.
But it's a great point to hit on. And you could certainly go either way with those numbers, lower or higher. They're derived from sort of the recommendations from landscape architect of what's will actually survive.
So in general, it's always difficult to know what to do when the state is coming in and saying what we have to do. But in this case, I think it might be helpful for everybody to have some context for that it's considered a statewide issue because of climate change and water issues.
Yeah, so the state at length discussed and put in the legislative findings purposefully to prevent a home rule challenge, although that's not to say there isn't going to be one. That this is a matter of statewide concern and should apply to both statutory and home rule municipalities and counties because of the downstream effects of landscaping practices. So they cited to some studies related to artificial plants, for instance, of how it creates microplastics and water plants way down the line, way out of that jurisdiction. And how the heat island effect for certain landscaping is felt more regionally than it is specifically to a jurisdiction. Just 2 examples. They did quite a few examples in the legislative findings to try to get ahead, I think, of any challenge to it.
Thank you. I appreciate you helping us, walking us through all of this and keeping us in compliance with
Oh, sure.
state law. Any other, Mayor Pro Tem?
I just had another question. So you said that the sort of minimum plant size was not pulled from state law, but
Correct.
so what is this? What is the state law? The state law doesn't not specify any type of minimum plant size?
No.
Okay, so this is just to sort of help the success of the vegetation as implemented in Mountain View.
Correct, because if you don't, you're gonna get little seedlings, and they're gonna meet the compliance on day 1, and they're gonna die on
And they're
day
gonna
2.
But as long as they got their certificate of occupancy, there's nothing you can do to force them to replant, correct? Or
You
is
could
there?
use code enforcement, but it's just administratively more complex.
Right.
Right.
Are you seeing this happen in a lot of municipalities where they're doing minimum plant sizes?
All the municipalities I work in where I've been involved at least with the landscaping issue, yes. Because if not, you're gonna get, again, landscaping that is compliant on day 1 and then isn't on day 2.
That makes sense. Thank you.
We ready to move to a vote? No further questions or discussion? Could the clerk please call the vote?
Mayor Pro Tem Bailey,
Yes.
Councilmember Debner,
Yes.
Councilmember Dennis.
Yes.
Councilmember Lasher.
Yes. Motion passes. Thank you. We are moving on to the first of several discussion items in this meeting. This one is, our discussion item is called Land Use Code Updates Calendar of Meetings. And in your packet, there is a staff report. Thank you to our clerk treasurer Campfield for doing these staff reports. I think they're very helpful for all of us. Thank you for helping keep us on track with them. And we are just looking for general direction or general approval of, once you go through the staff report, there's this exhibit that has a list of the meetings. Looks like that. We're looking for council discussion about that particular proposed timeline, because what it will do is we'll get the times out to the community, and it'll bring us all to the room to start this work of land use code updates. That there's a new acronym for us all. LUC, is that a common acronym?
Correct.
Yeah. And we'll come in an hour early and do the workshops, and then have that work shift after an hour to, we'll take a break, and then we'll have our regular meeting and as normal. So we're proposing spending those dates and those times to do this work, and we're asking council how for direction, if that's approved and if we can get that onto the calendar. Mayor Pro Tem.
Are we envisioning having a separate workshop session earlier in the month that is separate from this work session and regular council meeting for these times? Or are we suspending workshops, the other workshops that we usually have on the first Monday of the month?
I'm not picturing suspending the workshops, no.
So it's just in addition.
This is in addition, yeah. So we've got Fairfield and Woods, that survey just closed, and they'll be presenting on November 3rd to the full community. We'll get notices on doors so everybody knows. And then we'll start with the overview on November 17th. The idea is to start at 5:30, and our town attorney will take the lead on that, and we'll all be hitting the ground running. And then during regular workshops, we won't be doing this kind of work. So it's to do a workshop on the zoning before every regular meeting.
Yeah, no,
for a
I
period
understand that. My question was
months.
more of like, since we're doing already an extra workshop on top of a regular meeting every month, are we still gonna have the regular workshops that we typically would have the first Monday? That was my question.
Yeah, I mean, it really depends, right? Sometimes we try hard, like in this case for tonight's meeting, we put our discussion items at the end of the meeting rather than having a separate workshop. So if we don't have enough content for its own meeting, then we certainly don't need to call a workshop just for the point of calling a workshop. But if there's work for the workshop,
Right.
I wouldn't make it a rule to say that we shouldn't have workshops during this time period unless council says that's how you want to do it. And then, of course, we do what you say.
Yeah, I'm not in favor of suspending the workshops just because we're doing this. I just want to make sure we can keep progressing with other tasks that might
Mhm.
require workshop time. That was all my question was.
That makes sense. Does everybody feel comfortable with the 5:30 arrival time? Because I think another option is rather than moving up an hour, we move up 30 minutes and we start at 6, have an hour of zoning workshop, and then start the regular meeting at 6:30 and go a little bit later. So it just depends on how inconvenient is it for people to be coming in, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 or 10 different times early. That early.
I'm fine coming in. I'd rather start early because we go late so many times anyways. I
Mhm.
don't want to go like till 11. I'd rather come in at 5:30 personally, but.
Okay. Yeah, I'm fine with that. Okay.
I could go either way.
Okay. So,
Couldn't we adjust it if there was like an issue too? Like if we, as it goes, can't we change things? if it needs to be
Yeah.
Adjust it.
yeah, that's true. Although we're trying to get this out in a comprehensive way to the full community so that people can get it on their calendar. Because this is work that we really want the community present for the entire time as much as possible. So,
That makes sense.
we need to get that calendar published and out on doors and on the website. And once you get it out there, it's
Yeah.
hard to change it.
No, I get that.
But
You could always split the difference and do 5:45.
so complicated.
I know.
Has anybody heard from either of our two council members who are not present, unfortunately, on any feedback on this? Have we had any sense from anybody? Okay. Guess that's good. Which case then we need a motion to approve the land use code calendar of meetings as presented.
So moved.
And a second?
Second.
All in favor, say yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
All opposed, say no. Motion passes. Thank you, everybody. On to our next discussion item. This is the Gazette discussion. We're starting this discussion just because we've had some recent feedback from the community that they're not comfortable with the amount of editorials that are being published in the Gazette. And so I think it's perfectly reasonable for council to set some policy about how we use the Gazette. And the only reason that it's being used the way that it's being used is because that's sort of a standard in the other municipalities that participate. And I wasn't given any direction. So ask the administrator who's responsible for the communication aspect of our town. I am absolutely happy to take direction from council about how you would like the Gazette page to be used. And this agenda item isn't to say we're going to make that decision today. It's to take your temperature on it and to get each of your thoughts on this topic so that then I can go back with our clerk and we can talk through what you guys shared and then ideally bring something to the floor that you would feel would be because not everybody's always going to agree on everything, right? Everything that I bring to the floor on any agenda that I participate in creating, I'm always listening closely for where are people on this particular topic and trying to bring something to the floor that based on what I know of where you fall individually, it will pass. So I don't have a lot of my own thoughts about this. I'm just trying to find something that based on what I hear from each of the council members, where do we land as a body? So given what you've heard from the community, and given the last several years of the Gazette content, for 1 year, I think we had a full 2 pages. For 1 year, we've had roughly for another year, we've had half 1 page. Where do people fall? What would you like to see the Gazette used for? And I'm just going to listen to the best of my ability and then try to create a policy for us. Councilmember Dennis.
Yeah, that was something that Nancy and I had discussed as we're, beginning our community engagement committee. And I had mentioned to her, and we both agreed that we wanted to see more community highlights. So having more resident columns rather than just us, whether it's you or I or another council member, I think it's important to include other voices. That's what I've been hearing a lot of.
How do we get those voices? Because I've been reaching out to people and it's hard to get people to participate. I actually have reached out to a number of people and we've had a few articles, but it's hard. It's people are hesitant to do that. So maybe there could be some work at our events to do that as well, to sort of, inspire that kind of interaction. Mayor Pro Tem?
I also wonder if like the community engagement committee could actually work with the resident and, if they hear from people that they want to hear resident voices in the Gazette, then maybe they can work with those people they're hearing from and agree to maybe help the process along. So it doesn't feel so daunting to get something written and polished and put it in the Gazette. Like if they could kind of hold the hand if needed of the resident to try and help the process along.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I like that. I just want to be careful to not,
Guide it.
tell someone what
Exactly.
to
You
say.
don't want to do that. But.
Yeah. But I get what you mean.
What about making sure that it's, what if a resident wants to share something that doesn't coincide with the position that council is taking or the town is taking on something? Do you want to encourage that kind of thing as well? Do we want to say, what if we brand community voices in a way that says this is intentionally a diverse group of voices? We're bringing diversity to the table, because what I've been trying to do is speak with sort of the town's brand, except for with the editorials, it's very clearly, this is a position. So somehow making clear that these are positions, these are perspectives from the residents.
Yeah. I just would want to be careful to not make it appear argumentative, to have a column from someone in the community and then to come back and have our own. I just want to try to avoid kind of that back and forth. It's important to have input in their perspectives. I just want to be very careful of how we do that. But, open to working on that at some point. We'll see.
Devil will be in the details of the policy. Mayor Pro Tem?
I wonder if we could set up like an email address or a form on the website if people wanted to, if they had ideas for submissions to the Gazette where they could just reach out, or, just get the word out that we're looking for people to get more involved. And it might open up some ideas for people.
As a committee for creating the policy, you mean?
Oh, for getting content for the Gazette.
Like a call for submissions? Uh-huh.
Other things you could think of, I know like other council members have talked about how cool it'd be to have a kind of a community cookbook kind of thing. You could have, residents could share recipes, favorite recipes in like the Gazette too. I mean, have sort of the small town charm that we have the ability to have in Mountain View.
Yeah, just to make it more personal, I think that'd be a fun way to do that. I mean, it could be a number of things really, but just to kind of start making it more about community. Just my thought.
Councilmember Debner?
I do like that cookbook idea. I think that's, like, it's probably universally accepted as like a neutral opinion piece, I would imagine.
You
So,
never
you know,
Sometimes.
I guess it depends on the recipe, right? So I guess I'm feeling more in favor of, keeping it neutral. It is a taxpayer dollars that are supporting, this article in the newspaper. I think, we could really take advantage of that newspaper distribution to just highlight what is going on among council in addition to just, the meeting minutes. I mean, going onto the website, downloading the PDF and reading through all these pages to understand what's going on, that can get a little dry. And not everyone has digital access. So I think we have a real opportunity to kind of put a concise, neutral set of information into residents' hands, just by sharing what's going on with the town, what's council talking about.
Honestly, from an editorial perspective, just communication wise, that is by far the easier solution to administer.
Yeah.
It will be much less time consuming and much more easy to create the policy and administer it. If we say this is speaking from the voice of the town and we don't want to have any editorials, it's a stronger policy, but it's easier to administer.
And there is a editorial section available in the paper that's separate from what the town pays for, correct?
No,
No, there's not.
not that I'm aware of. Maybe there's something in there that I'm
Well,
not.
I'm pretty sure there is. I've read editorial pieces where,
Paper writ large, like.
yeah, the paper at large. So that is like an avenue that's not taxpayer funded that could, still be used by any member of the public.
I have a confession to make. I skip right to Mountain View and I don't really read much else. So I don't know.
Same.
So
For most
I
part,
can
yeah.
neither confirm nor deny whether there's a.
So the editor, his name is Guy, seeks editorials
I guess maybe it's the opinion section is what I'm thinking of.
or the letters, maybe
Yeah.
letters.
To the editor?
The letters to the editor
Yeah,
are
that-
different. Those aren't
Okay.
articles. Yeah. Councilmember Lasher, you were going to speak.
I agree with Councilmember Debner. I think we should just keep it very neutral. I think that if we're having pieces from community members, I think it's gonna cause a lot of issues. I like the idea of like, a recipe, because then that's something that everyone can, keep very chill. So I think we should keep doing it like we are. And I've had a lot of feedback of people really liking it because they don't have computers or whatever, and it's coming to their house and they can read it so they feel like they know what's going on in town. So that's the input that I've been getting.
I get a lot of regional support for my editorials, just to be clear. It's only in town that we've had people say that it's difficult for them. So just to be clear that we are recognized as a town regionally by people who I don't think we would be otherwise. People come up to me and talk to me who I don't know because they like the editorials. So it's unusual to say no editorializing, but I think it might be a stronger route to go. It might just be better at this point that we just say, this is like a flyer. This is an extension of the way we communicate as a town. These are our flyers. And some people read them and some people read, this and the Gazette is a route that we use to say what's happening, what decisions council has made, what events are coming up, to share pictures from the events, that kind of
I
thing.
guess I was confused. I thought you were saying that you were still gonna be writing that, I thought we were talking about having other community members write editorial pieces. Is that not what we were talking about? Cause I don't think community members should be writing editorial pieces on the Mountain View page, but I like what you've been doing and that's the feedback I've been getting, but I don't know.
What's your?
I guess my perspective is take the safest route. So we're a really small community and I think it's important to try to protect the unity and community feel as much as we can. So the safest way that I see to do that is not to have editorials and just keep it straight factual, be easier to administer, and I think that'd be receptive to the kind of the public feedback we received. So that's kind of my thought is just keep it neutral, factual, just essentially another flyer,
Mm-hmm.
but like newspaper print.
How do you feel about that, Mayor Pro Tem?
I mean, I can see the value in that. I mean, it's just another way of engaging the community. I also think that that it might be fun to have, maybe not editorials, but maybe something like a resident spotlight or something. I feel like
I've tried that so much.
it doesn't seem to
People
work.
do not want to be highlighted in the
Get
Gazette.
that.
They do not. They like sharing an occasional wedding picture, but they don't want to celebrate their anniversaries. They don't want to celebrate the birth of their children. They don't want to celebrate their own birthdays in the Gazette. They just don't. I've asked many people. I know, I'm sad about it because I think it's lovely, but I understand as well, like maybe you don't want your picture in the paper.
What do you think are the barriers for that? Is it just having your face in a widely distributed newspaper in Denver Metro, or do you have any ideas?
Well, I do a little bit because I've talked with people, but privacy,
Yeah.
privacy. People are careful about their privacy, and I understand that.
That makes sense.
We're a little bit more out in there and out in the view, and so it's it's just a different perspective. But I do think pictures of our events are, if people have given permission, right? And then factual content and probably we need to hear from, we've only got 4 of our council members here tonight. We did just hear from Councilmember Algeen. She won't be making the meeting. So let's bring this back for more discussion with a little bit more. I'll try to frame some different options so that it's not just like wide ranging. We'll give you some choices and then we'll try to narrow it down with the additional 2 voices at the table. Mayor Pro Tem?
I did also I mean, it's kind of similar to what we were talking about, but I liked having like columns from like Public Works and anything from staff that would be, obviously would be very neutral. And that's just informative too. So it's another way of getting the word out about stuff.
Yeah, the staff columns have been really fun and helpful.
Yeah, I would say that's probably my favorite. I always learned something new, and Dave wrote like a little public work section about our town code. So I thought that was really valuable, just to get that sent out amongst the community. Because not everyone knows what the rules are for fences.
Right.
Or even just like changes in the law, like we just passed the first reading of the new changes, and just sort of like, because people don't like to be told what to do and how to plant when they make modifications to their property or build a new home, maybe we can sort of head off some of the head off any kind of questions by just sort of like putting it out there, like, getting the word out more about why we did that. It's not because we're turning into an HOA, it's because, we're, trying to comply with state law and what the state law, and get background on the state law, that kind of stuff.
Okay, thank you. So I'll bring that back with a little bit more structure for further discussion. You okay with that? Moving on to our next discussion item, we have community information and document discovery, and our clerk treasurer Campfield is going to speak to this. You have the floor. Thank you.
So in staff's effort to try to increase internal efficiency and overall community transparency, we are making great progress at putting more documents on the website that residents can access easily without having to put in a Cora request. But in the meantime, I think having a memorialized document that kind of tells you what is Corable, what's not, things that you can ask the clerk for is going to be helpful for the residents, because I do know that there's a lot of questions that come in that aren't necessarily a Cora, and I have to give a blanket response that doesn't really give them any answers, and I think it could be frustrating for some of the residents. So that is why we had worked together to put this document out there and hopefully have it on the website so residents can understand why I would be responding that way or where they can go to look for the information that they're requesting.
Thank you. Do we have any feedback from council members for this document? Do you see it as and helping in the ways that we are hoping?
I think so.
I just had one question, or comment maybe. When the top row of the spreadsheet in the notes section for the, if you're seeking a specific document, it tells about how if you're unsure if something is current, contact the mayor. I wonder if we could change that perhaps to the clerk rather than the mayor.
Why would you want to direct that kind of question to the clerk rather than the administrative head?
I mean, doesn't the clerk fulfill the core requests typically?
Mm-hmm. I just want to make sure that I understand.
I just think because it's the mayor is an elected official and the clerk is hired by the council. I just thought maybe that might smooth things over if there's any kind of contentious period in town. If you were reaching out to a clerk rather than an elected official, it might smooth things over.
Mm-hmm.
That was the only thing that I was thinking could change.
Mm-hmm. I'm fine with that. I mean, what I see is that it's once people start to get more familiar with this, they're gonna reach out to you as well, like they should just ask us if it's current. So I think it's perfectly fine it won't be that much more work. Yeah. Any other feedback or thoughts? Like, do you see things that you're like, what about this or what about that? Like so we want to make sure to be really comprehensive here too.
I guess one thing that pops into my mind that we could maybe add as like a new row is, what sort of information would you go to, council member for, right? So just kind of highlighting the difference between kind of the administrative matters versus more legislative or community concerns, and just outlining kind of the both options, like this is the kind of stuff you would talk to a council member for. This is the kind of stuff that you would talk to the mayor for or
Right.
the town clerk.
Maybe we should say both the clerk or the mayor, because really there are times when people don't want to bother the clerk. They feel like they're bothering. Whereas if you're going to your neighbor, I get questions like that all the time. Like I want to allow, one of the things that I've worked hard to do is to increase the participation and have an open door. I open my door to community members almost once a month, and everybody has my phone number and everybody has my email address. And so I don't want to say, don't reach out, but they should be comfortable reaching out to any of us
Oh, absolutely.
with some guidance about I think that's a really good point, Councilmember Debner, why you might be wanting to talk to a council member versus a clerk versus the mayor, to clarify that a little bit.
Yeah.
And
agree with that.
sometimes there might be things that, it's just personal preference. I know Councilmember Debner better, so I'm gonna talk to him. And then he can direct somebody to resources. But yeah, I don't want to make it too like rigid.
Yeah.
Just trying to give us all a little bit of guidance, because it feels like we do have more participation, and that's a good thing. And we're all just learning. I think there's some learning involved in people participating more, and it's hard at first because there's so many rules and there's acronyms and it feels formal in meetings. And so this is we talked a little bit about like local government 101 classes. This is kind of a little bit about like the first step there.
I do think that adding the clerk there would
Mhm.
be fine. Yeah, I think that you want to give people more options, not fewer options.
Right.
So I think that would be perfect.
Yeah.
That addition of the clerk there,
Yeah.
because then they can choose, which one they would prefer to reach out to. So we don't want to discourage them from reaching out to the clerk either, even though it is
Right.
like more work.
Right,
to respond. That is her job.
right. So really, what Councilmember Debner's talking about is another kind of table, which is why might I reach out to this role versus that role?
Mhm.
Any other feedback or thoughts?
Another thought is you could mention in the table the opportunity to provide public comment at the council meetings, because that's, because, I mean, while residents can ask questions and we have in our rules and procedures that, you know, if they have any questions, they'll get a follow-up. Just including that might make it more comprehensive.
Yeah, and also the different ways in which residents can get comments, like they can email, comments in ahead of a meeting and ask that it be included in the record and that those sort of things too. So it's not just showing up at
Oh,
the meeting
yeah.
and making a comment.
That's a very good point. Because, you know, residents can email in advance to get their comment included in the agenda packet. But I don't think that's utilized a
I think
whole lot.
it's partly in a way as a separate, we do have that graphic. We have shared a graphic, how to be engaged. And it lists all the different ways that you can be engaged, including public comment, writing letters, coming to meetings, going to forums. One of the difficulties that I think our community members are experiencing is when we have a public comment that I believe they're hoping to have influence and share their thoughts, but they also want to engage, right? And as a rule, we're not doing that. And so we just follow up. And so I'm trying to sort of, rather than saying you can get your information by coming to the meeting and sharing a public comment, which then exacerbates the problem. You can be engaged by all means by coming to the meeting, listening, attending regularly, learning how it all works, coming to the forums. You can share your thoughts at the public comment, but you're not going to get much from that. Whereas if you have somebody who comes forward and says, I want you to change the law about this, or I want you guys to do this differently about this, but I need to understand something first. Like that's getting a document, having information, gaining better understanding. So it's really two different things. Does that make sense? I mean, maybe there's another table that's about how to be engaged. That references.
Yeah, it kind of seems like that, because this seems like the where to find what table,
Mm-hmm.
but like maybe how to engage, these are the options table might be a good.
Mm-hmm. All the way from, sign up to get your emails to run for office and everything in between. And that really is like another layer of information.
You said there's a graphic that shared engagement tactics and strategies or whatever. Is that on the website?
No, it was a flyer that I put in
Okay.
the Gazette a long time ago when I first started.
Just have a vague memory. A
We
vague
could update that
memory
and
of
put
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
The problem is keeping it, when the rules change, you have to remember to go change that. But yeah, we should update that and put it back out, I think. So we're talking about adding, sort of a little primer about when you might talk with staff versus council versus your mayor. When, like, what are the general guidelines around there, but without too much, yeah. And then also adding an additional layer of how to engage in your local government. Is that what I'm hearing from people? And then should this be on the website? Should this be a flyer? Should this be put in the Gazette? Should this, all of the above, a brochure?
All of the above.
I think, yeah, since it's a new document, it'd be good to widely distribute it, but the website is a great resource too.
Right, but not everybody has.
Yeah,
internet
not everyone
access.
has that access, so.
So you'd like I just want to make sure that we're all on the same page here. You'd like to see like a brochure, like we did with Code Enforcement 101, where this is shared as it's printed, it's a brochure people can pick up, and it's put on doors, and it's the website and social media and the Gazette. This is information that you think would be valuable enough that we put our resources into that. I'm not disagreeing with you. I just want to make sure that I understand your direction.
We don't yet have a communication policy, right? So
Correct.
that would be helpful to help decide.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
I mean, I don't. I think it's like very excessive, and a waste of money. I think that people who don't know how to do something call and then, you know, she could absolutely be like, we have this, you can come to town hall and look at our thing. You know, maybe putting it on the website, I understand that doesn't reach everyone, but I also understand that there is a lot of concern about how many flyers we do and how much the printing costs are. So
That's why I'm asking about this,
yeah, so
right?
it's like, this doesn't seem as important as other information that goes out. So I think
Okay.
we need to be like fiscally responsible there.
I would agree with that.
Okay, so a little bit more selective. Councilmember Dennis, too.
I agree with that.
Okay.
I'm okay with that. But I mean, I do think it's important information that needs to be shared.
Mm-hmm.
I just got a lot of feedback that there was like so much going out that people are very overwhelmed right now. And so it's like, I just think that, you know, putting out important things where like, yes, this is very important if someone wants to know how to do these things, then there's other people who are just like, why are we getting so many flyers? Why is the town doing so many, you know, how much is the budget cost? You know, that was a big concern when we were going over our budget. So I just want to be very respectful for the people who are concerned about that.
Right.
We also have the option of just announcing it on the utility bills, and if somebody wants a copy of it, they can
Let's
come
do
into town hall.
Good idea.
I like that because you're already going to be building that out anyway.
Mm-hmm.
Perfect.
That's a good idea.
Okay.
And also a new resident packet, right?
Mm-hmm.
If we ever,
That's with that committee.
Right.
Mhm. Okay, so we'll work on updating this, increasing those, adding those additional elements, getting it onto the website, and then we'll remember to get it onto the utility bill and have it available. We can print it in-house and just have a few copies available at the front desk. Not have it be a huge thing. Thank you, everybody. I appreciate that discussion. This is the kind of thing that, you know, it's hard to know exactly how to go, and we want to be respectful of everybody's different perspective. We're moving on to our last discussion item, unless anybody else has any last thoughts. Okay, last discussion item before our reports is the employee handbook update. And again, our clerk treasurer Campfield is gonna take the floor.
So the last employee handbook was updated November 20th, 2023. There's been some administrative evaluations in the last few months since I've been here of things that we maybe need to update just for more efficiency. This also coincides with the recent CBI audit that our police department had underwent, and they have some specific policies that they need to have in their employee handbook. So what we're looking at currently is a section of the employee handbook for sworn police officers with the policies that we need to update per the CBI audit. Because of how we're restricted in space right now, there is potentially a situation where we might need to have a remote work policy. I know we have some council members that work remotely that could weigh in on, you know, the effectiveness of having something like that documented. And the last piece, I have been talking with our town attorney of putting a subsection in our conflicts of interest for nepotism, just to have it documented and memorialized. So that is the information you have in the packet.
Any thoughts or discussion or direction for our clerk?
I mean, again, thanks for doing this. I think it's long overdue, and I think it's gonna help the town be more transparent, so I'm all for it.
Thank you.
I was just curious about the CBI audit. Could you maybe explain, like, is that like an annual thing? Is it shared with council? Like what? I'm just curious because I haven't heard that one before.
So it's through CBI, Colorado Bureau of Investigation, and it's done every 3 years. So they just found some areas that we can do better on, like policy wise. Everyone that's in the building is up to date training wise to be able to access that information, but policy wise, we can do a little better job. So we just want to add some stuff. Everything we're going to add to that, the majority of it is already in the police policy. We just like it to be in the handbook.
And a lot of that also is due to our court clerk who is working in a lot of confidential information, and it will cover him as well.
So then with, if there's no objection, we will update the employee handbook with those provisions and bring it back for adoption. And probably something like this would go into the consent agenda. Since we've had a little bit of discussion about it, unless people would prefer it not. Mayor Pro Tem?
I think it's necessary and should go in.
I mean, whether or not it goes into the consent agenda or if you want to
Oh.
have further like the
Oh,
idea
I
is
see
to
what
do
you're saying.
this as this is your workshop portion
Right.
of these concepts. And then when it'll go into the handbook and come back for adoption with those changes made. Are you okay having it on the consent agenda at that point?
My only concern is that two of our council members are not here.
Mhm.
And so I would prefer to have it just on out the abundance of caution out in the regular
Okay.
meeting instead of a consent agenda.
Makes sense. Okay.
And
Councilmember Debner?
I guess it's helpful to know what it was and what changes we're making. So if we could do a red line version, that would be helpful. And so you said November 20th, 2023 was the last time it was reviewed and adopted. But I believe the current version says like May 20th, because didn't we just recently this year adopt
I
changes?
might have missed that.
So it was May 20th.
Okay,
Just thought I'd point that out.
thank you for the clarification.
Okay. Thank you. I appreciate all the hard work that went into this. I think these are all going to be helpful additions to our handbook. Appreciate all your hard work. We are moving on to our mayor and council reports. I'll just ask if our council members have anything that they would like to report or our committees tonight. I have a few things to report. Just for the record, just for a factual record of a little bit of information here. When things go on to the consent agenda, it doesn't mean that they cannot be discussed. I hope everybody on council knows that. And I think Councilmember Debner and I had a long conversation about this, how if you don't want something on the consent agenda, all you have to do is ask me and we pull it and we talk about it. There's a process whereby if you don't even want to ask me, you can make a motion to pull an item from the consent agenda. And then you need a second, and then everybody votes on it, and then you do it. And I have really no problem pulling things from the consent agenda if council wishes to speak to them. It is not ever an issue. If council members feel that they want something that is on the consent agenda to come off of the consent agenda, simply let me know. It's no problem. I'm not going to do it if just one council member who voted against it wants to bring it back for arguing when everybody else voted for it, because it's just an opportunity for arguing. And I'm trying to keep our board on track and functioning really well. I think we're doing a good job with that. However, if there are two council members who agree, regardless of how they voted on the first reading, that's it. It's just over. You don't even have to go through the motion. You just tell me that you want it off the consent agenda, and it's no problem. So I just want to clarify that when I put something on the consent agenda, the only reason is for efficiency, to keep our meetings efficient. That's it. Along those same lines, I did not rally for a raise for myself. We voted on a raise for the incoming mayors, whoever that is, to work as a town administrator rather than hiring a town administrator in this budget. So I want to be very clear and set that record straight. On other news, we had a very successful council mayor forum that had been set several at the beginning of the year at my house recently that I really appreciated the attendance we had at that forum. And I know everybody can't make it in the middle of the day, but When council members do come to those forums, it really does change the way the forum works. And I think it's great that we had as much attendance. We had about 12 people come in total, and we had a really good conversation. So I think that the goals of those forums that we've set are being met. And I think we should continue to set them for the future and have forums where council joins rather than just have the mayor's community office hours. My feedback is that we should continue to hold those because they can be really helpful and interesting discussions, especially when we have them prior to a meeting, so that community members can have more relaxed conversation on the agenda topics in a more relaxed setting rather than just their 3 minutes. So I would continue to encourage the people that you speak to get those on their calendar at the beginning of the year, and we'll set the calendar early. So that's all I have to share. Oh, I did want to share as well. Well, I'll share that at the staff report. So we'll move on to agenda item number 13, which is our staff reports, and Chief Nesbitt is first.
Good evening, everyone. Just some quick updates. We actually received the new camera systems, body worn camera systems, and they are amazing. The features they offer, the audio, the video is so much better. It's a great advantage to have those. So it's made life a lot easier for the officers. It actually does some things I didn't think it would do. So thank you all for your support with that. Former Officer Matt Garrow came in and did our SFSTs, or standardized field sobriety test. It was super nice of him to come down and do that for us. The difficult part about that particular training is it's 24 hours long. So trying to get the schedule figured out to send everyone to that and split it all up can be difficult, to say the least. But he actually offered to come down and do that in-house for us at City Hall or Town Hall. So it was great. Matt's a great guy. He worked for us for a long time, and he's doing great. He's working for Brighton PD now. He's doing great up there. So if anybody has any questions, the rest of information's in the packet. Can I answer anything for anybody?
Council members?
No, but I think that's excellent that he clearly he left on very good terms with our town.
Absolutely. Yeah. We tried to get into that training while he's with us, and just always, he's so super passionate about, traffic, and especially with DUI enforcement. It was great. He came in and did that for us.
Thank you, Chief Nesbitt. Our clerk has the floor for her report.
I have a table setting for my report. I'll highlight just a couple things. October 27th is the day for our candidate forum, as well as the last day to mail your ballots back into the county. So be mindful of that. Our new court clerk started on October 8th. He has hit the ground running. He has exceeded my expectations, and I think he's a great fit for the town. I'm working on a lot of new standard operating procedures for our internal processes to try to streamline things and help staff get in more of a efficient cadence for their roles. I will also say that we are working on identifying a lot of cost-saving measures internally. We've made some administrative decisions on things like outsourcing janitorial services and bringing those back in-house to cut costs. We're working on our efficiency with accounts payable, because that has incurred a lot of costs, having auto pay bills that extend the reconciliation time that we're paying a third party to do those services. So I've cut off a lot of those auto pays to help bring those things back in-house and be more efficient. We've kind of changed the goal in a public works coordinator position. We didn't have a lot of qualified candidates with municipal experience. So we hired 2 public works assistants. I'm taking on a lot of the financial aspects of that role, where the mayor is now doing a lot of the management of the crew. I'm also trying to work with the town attorney in doing more of the ordinances and the resolutions and the staff reports, so we're not outsourcing all of that and using up his time for those things.
continue to be impressed by you.
Yeah. Yeah, we're all very grateful for all the help that you're giving our town. Do you want to follow up at all about the work that you did to look into the costs of the recall?
I'm still working on that. In terms of our lump GL billing system that is not very efficient, I'm having to go back through and look at actual paper invoices to see what was used for the recall versus the coding. Right now, rough estimate from a quick calculation of attorney fees and just dedicating 80% of your clerk's wages for that time period towards the recall, it's, those two alone are close to 50,000.
So we want to be really careful just to get the real number that is detailed and accurate, because it's important. And that's something that we are responding to per the last meeting when council asked for that clarification. Thank you for doing all of that extra legwork. Any questions for our clerk other than big thank yous?
Yeah, big thank yous.
So the public works is sort of an interesting pivot. I just want to speak to that a little bit because somebody took a picture of me out painting a curb and put it on social media, and I guess people are shocked or disappointed or something. I don't know. There's been some social media chatter about it. And so the curbs that we painted the vision triangles yellow, several of them, and we're trying to get the right stencil and the right color and to figure out the correct sort of way to do it. And since we don't have a public works coordinator, this falls to me. So I want to make sure that I know how to do it so that I can teach our two public works teammates to do it. And I understand what the hardest parts, where the pain points are there. But if you look at the curb at Benton and 41st, you'll see there's yellow curbs on the vision triangle. And then there was initially some black lettering that just really didn't look great. The stencil that we chose didn't work well at all. And the paint didn't work well. And so I painted over that this weekend and painted using white letters and a different stencil. And I think it looks pretty good. But I don't want to do the whole town if we have any, objections from council or thoughts. So go take a look and let me know what you think. Because we're still at the stage where we can kind of rethink that and say, well, maybe we should use green letters instead of white letters. We're just thinking it through. And we have an example at 41st and Benton. And then I'll be doing our public works reports, and our two crew members, you'll see them out about town. Their names are Brian and Steve, and they're both, entry level, gung ho to help. And so say hello, introduce yourselves. I hope members of the public will as well. They are wearing hats and uniforms that are branded Mountain View brand. And they are going to be helping with the town cleanup as well. They would like the word to get out to members of the public that if you need help bringing stuff to the dumpsters, just reach out to me and we can get them to come help you. That's the value of a small town. That's one of the special things that we can do. And we're going to start having the sewer maintenance contract that council approved. It's called QP Services. They're going to go through and they're going to videotape every single inch of our sanitary sewer system. And then they're going to line some sections of them as well. And so you'll see those big trucks out. It'll take probably about a week, and they'll also clear some of the roots out. So you'll be seeing those trucks out, I believe, this week, if everything goes as planned. And if you have any questions about that, you can feel free to reach out to me. We've also been doing the Mountain View Cares About Safety program. Part of that is the yellow curbs marked with no parking, and the slow signs in the alleys. As you're exiting an alley, there's a slow sign. And we are also putting mirrors for pedestrians We're starting on Eaton. We've had one up on the Chase Alley just to kind of see what works, what doesn't. But we're starting on the Eaton Alley as you're exiting 44th. And we've asked both businesses for permission, and they've both granted permission, so that when you're a pedestrian and you're walking down 44th and you come across the alley where there's a building and a building on either side, and the cars are really dangerous there because they can't see around that corner at all. There will be a mirror that a pedestrian it'll be directed down the alley so pedestrians can see the cars coming. In addition, there'll be a sign for the cars saying slow, dangerous intersection. That dangerous intersection sign already exists, but we're putting an additional sign in to say slow. So those are the kinds of things, if there are particular alleys or intersections that people feel are dangerous, we're trying to go, address the most dangerous ones first and prioritize in that way. The rest of this, I believe, is fairly straightforward and routine. And I would just thank everybody for all their hard work this year and this month, because we've gotten a lot done. We've had we're coming to the end of our year, and we've had a very productive year. So thank you for all your hard work. And we are now at the end of our agenda. Yeah, you have a question?
Yeah,
For Debner.
I was curious, so I was looking on the Foothills Regional Housing Authority website, and I don't see our property listed yet. Do you have any updates to share?
I'm so glad you asked. Yes, I should have put that in the report. So Foothills has created the listing, and we've had applicants from the community. They asked for if there were people in the community that were interested in applying to connect them. And I have had some conversation with several applicants, and one of the applicants in particular has reached out directly to Foothills Regional Housing, and somebody named Nick with Foothills Regional Housing came out and helped this applicant apply. And it looks as if the home will be occupied by the end of November. Yeah. They actually brought the applicant over and gave them a showing of the house, and it seems like it suits their needs, and it is going to be probably a really good fit. That's my hope. Fingers crossed. But it is definitely, if something falls through, I'll let you know. But it looks like it's moving forward. But it's up to them. So I'm trying not to stay out of it. Any other questions? Mayor Pro
I
Tem.
just had a quick question about the weed spraying on the right of way at 41st Avenue. I love that it's pet friendly, but isn't that property owner responsibility?
When
Was it
that
abatement?
work was done, when the 41st Avenue rocks were put in, community members were concerned about the change in the landscaping and whether or not they would be responsible, since they didn't do that. They didn't choose that. We didn't give them choices about what to put there. There was some choice on one of the corners because somebody engaged with us on it and came forward and was very vocal. And so we did engage there, and we made a change on some of the rocks. But for the most part, the plan was get some rocks in there after the curb goes in. And the landscaping that had been in there got pulled out. And so what our public works coordinator at the time told the residents was that they would spray them for the weeds. And so we have been just continuing that work. It is a spray that is made up out of salt and dish soap and vinegar, I think. It's not something that's very expensive, and it takes just a few minutes. And so we've just continued doing that. But if council would like us to stop, we shall stop.
I feel like that the fact that it's already been agreed to, it makes it really difficult to get out of that.
That's how I felt. That once you say that you're going to do something, you should just do it. Maybe we should put a timeline to it and say, well, we're going to do it for the next year, and then after that, you'll be responsible for this. Something like that.
I mean, it is staff time. I mean, I'd also would rather people not spray poisonous weed killer there either.
There's a
At the
positive
same
there as well.
time. Yeah.
It's not that time consuming. But I know it is different because it's the town taking care of a section of the right of way.
Are there any other sections of town that we take care of, or just that? That's
We do another section there because of the difficulty on the ice of forming on the sidewalk along 43rd, the south side of the sidewalk, all from Fenton all the way to Sheridan. We clear that entire sidewalk of snow. We have our snow removal services plow that sidewalk just because it's too hard to use code enforcement for that. There's a lot of people there who live along that side, and by the time we actually use the tools of code enforcement, we would be abating it and then billing them afterwards because otherwise the snow will have been melted. So we just added that into the contract with the snow removal people. So we do that. That's the only one that I can think of.
That's in like complete shadow, right?
It's in complete shadow, and it's a route that pedestrians walk all the time, and it just needs to be plowed. That's been my take on it. It's very helpful to have it plowed early rather than letting it sit and turn into ice. It becomes very dangerous.
Been a nightmare.
Mm-hmm. Would you be more comfortable let's bring this back for further discussion? It sounds like there needs to be more discussion. I'm seeing some of that.
Well, I guess I'm just concerned because, are some residents gonna be concerned? Because I mean, we are just kind of selectively choosing, where we spray the weeds. I mean, not every alley gets weed sprayed. So in some ways, it would be more fair to just not spray anyone's weeds. I can see the ice issue because that's like a safety concern. So that's like a top priority.
Let's bring it back to talk about code enforcement in general, rather than trying to make a decision on the fly. Let's
Yeah.
wait and have two more council members present and talk about code enforcement in summary. Like we're due for that conversation anyway. Mayor Pro Tem?
I know that our public works assistants are sort of more entry level, but are we ever planning on them being present at a meeting, or are we just trying to conserve costs because?
Yeah,
Okay.
no.
I was so curious.
Yeah, but they came to the forum so that I could introduce them to people, and they're out in the community, meeting lots of people.
I just know that was something that was valuable to residents when we had the coordinator position, because then the person who was doing they know you though, so it's like.
And I'm actually doing the work too. I'm painting curbs today, this weekend. Yeah. It's just not it's not the right thing at this point. But at some point, this is a trial period to see how this works with the crew. And we'll see how it goes. Okay. Any other questions or comments on Public Works? No? May I have a motion to adjourn?
Move to adjourn.
Therefore, there being no further business, we are hereby adjourned at 7:58. Thank you, everybody. I know. Soon.